Okay, so let's start out, Jake, if you want to just kind of introduce who you are, what you do, how you help entrepreneurs and founders.
Yeah, so my name is Jake Kocher, born and raised in Austin, Texas. Started this business, Aim for Hire, which is a recruiting firm with my brother. We work almost exclusively with seed to Series C funded tech startups, helping them find talent across the org. In addition to that, we also help introduce founders to capital that are raising and typically represent VCs in their portfolio companies when they have hiring needs.
Oh, I love that. Awesome. So yeah, y'all come in from a couple different angles, really helping people get the talent they need to build that business that they're aiming for. I love that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, what we're gonna do is just kind of walk through, because yeah, like as you know, those talent needs, they change as your business goes along. The talent you need at day 0 versus day 100 versus, you know, when you're ready to really scale and launch are going to look really different. So let's kind of walk through these. We're going to frame them around our different stages of growth. I like that. Okay, let's talk actually for, you kind of mentioned this because you mentioned like COVID happening and all the rules change. That would totally fall into kind of our last stage, which is kind of a stage that can really happen anywhere along the journey, which is our event stage. And so that can be, these can be bad events, you know, these can be, and they can be external events like a COVID, or like, you know, a regulatory change that totally changes the market or the industry. Or it can be a internal kind of change where, hey, there's an acquisition, there's a merger, there's a, you know, I mean, even a founder passes away and then it's like, oh, well, what happens here? Or someone wants to exit. You know, there's a lot of different things that can happen in there that can be made. Basically, it's anytime you have a major shift in your business or your market. We say, hey, you've kind of jumped out of the normal flow and you're in what we call an event stage. So that can take a lot of different forms, but talent, I imagine there's probably a lot of questions to be considering about talent in some of those different events. How would you frame that for someone who might be have an event come upon them? Because a lot of times we don't move towards them; they just kind of come upon us.
They just happen, right? Yeah. I think like a bad example that I'll use is like people that have run remote teams, right? Like I think pre-COVID, probably nobody cared about somebody that ran a fully remote team, and then all of a sudden they're worth their weight in gold, right? And so I think the first thing is like whatever the event is, being able to snatch somebody that is experienced in that realm and probably give them more power than you might have pre-event is an interesting proposal. At least I'm not saying that it works 1,000% of the time, but I do think it's an interesting proposal and something that we're seeing it right now with AI, right? That's an event. And now everybody's hiring chief AI engineers, right? To oversee where they're implementing AI, not only in their product, but in all the processes that are involved in creating the product. And so you kind of create these like niche specializations of industry experts to be brought in.
As guides for this particular aspect. And that sounds like, especially when something external changes and it's like, whoa, the landscape is different. The land has flooded. We now need a sailor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I think that's one way to look at it. And then I think the other thing is like the zoom out, right? Like what got us here? What culture did we build? And how does that fit into the new norm? And I think another thing I really like from someone that's an entrepreneur is if it's not broken, break it. Right. And I think that can be an interesting use case in events. I honestly, those are the two things that immediately come to mind.
No, that's really good. You mentioned like finding someone also who's kind of walked through something before. So like if say say it's an acquisition or it's a merger type of scenario, would you recommend basically bringing on, maybe not as a full-time, but from a consultant, like bringing in someone to consult who has expertise in that particular kind of event to guide that? Or maybe it's like you said, kind of in a sense like, hey, let's look who's on our bench. Has anyone walked through this? Can we elevate them? I guess those are kind of, is those really your two options of finding a guide in a lot of ways?
I think that makes the most sense, right? I think it can be different for each use case, but to me, someone that has we'll just call it tribal knowledge would be excellent to input in that situation. But if you don't have somebody that has tribal knowledge in that situation, you know, again, finding consultants are great. You know, you can let them go whenever you need to, and they add value while they're there. So
Yeah,
at least the good ones do. So
no, that's good. That's awesome.